Hi, everyone. This is Jess Spillers. Welcome to another episode of Spill the Goods with me, Jess, and the lovely Christina Goodwin. So today we're going to talk about the August BOMA meeting, only one this month, I believe. And yeah, so let's just get started, I guess. Right off the bat, we had some public comment, which kind of led, honestly, to some of the discussion later around ICE. People may have heard that there was some discussion about that. So Rich Gerard came up and gave some public comment about this issue and was talking about how ICE and MPD should be working together more closely. And he gave the example about he didn't quite believe, I suppose, that Chief Marr was doing his full duty because in Little Troy, New Hampshire, the police there have arrested 30 plus people for an illegal status violation. And Troy has, hardly any, it's only a couple thousand, I think, max. So, in Rich's mind, it was impossible that Manchester police, weren't checking everybody for their status. But Chief Marr did come up later and say that, that is a part of what they do when they book people. So
they do check their immigration status and warrants against.
You check their warrants, and so if there's a warrant, they alert the officials about it, at the FBI or at, in the other counties, wherever it might be. But that comes up later, so we'll talk a little bit more about Troy later, which is it's gonna annoy me. I'm sorry, everybody, if I roll my eyes like a million times this episode because I'm just like, this is so stupid. But here we are talking about it again. There were a couple of people who came up again talking about the police, but for a different reason. So Grace Kandecki, Griselli Glenn, and Ophelia Burnett all came up and spoke to, and actually another guy, John Blanchett, he came up and they spoke to the Manchester Police Department and their policy around when an officer is involved in a fatal incident. That policy where they stay away, they are on leave for 5 days and then they can potentially return back. They all asked for a change to that. They all asked for that to be until the investigation is over in its entirety, which I don't think is unreasonable. What I would like to see is if they return to work, because I can understand why we might want them to continue to work considering we don't have, 30 plus officers. Yeah. Just go to desk duty, Chief Marr spoke about how they have booking on rotation. Put that guy in booking, just put him somewhere where, they're not necessarily going to
be out interacting with the public
and potentially get themselves into that situation again. It would be good, I think. And I don't think any of them were unreasonable about it. I guess the body cam footage from that shooting in December with Nick Moran is available publicly now. I haven't watched it, but this gentleman, John Blanchett, who spoke, had watched it. And it was interesting because he noted that he didn't think that the MPD did a really great job de-escalating the situation and that everything they did really just heightened the moment and the emotions happening then for Nick and for the officers involved.
I think that that's not surprising, maybe. I feel like we've seen that a lot when, police are involved. That's not their primary focus isn't always de-escalation. And I think that's where a lot of that, the defund the police comes in. It's not, we don't want any police at all in our streets, but could we move some of the funding from police access to military grade weapons, maybe, to community liaisons whose primary focus is a de-escalation or, if they're called to a domestic violence situation, maybe there is somebody who's familiar with the case that is a caseworker or is very familiar with the domestic violence situation that can come in and help so it doesn't become more violent. So I don't think that's, again, unfortunately, I don't think that's super shocking because I don't know that de-escalation is their primary strength.
No.
Or target.
Well, I think the way that we think about policing in America is just so different, right? We think about the police sort of controlling the situation and being more of this reactionary force rather than preventative, thinking more in terms of safety.
Yeah. Interesting. I have not seen that either, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't watched it, but his ask was, for MPD to get training in de-escalation. He thought it was pretty apparent that McKinley was potentially going through some sort of mental health crisis. Minimally in the moment, he was very afraid. So I think that's reasonable. I don't know. I just don't think it's unreasonable. And then he also, he was funny. He mentioned no ICE. He was like, I oppose any sort of cooperation with ICE, which was kind of funny. You could tell he just like added that on at the end, but
yeah.
Just because of the conversation that happened earlier with Rich. But we had a presentation about that area by Arms Park. That's the large like parking lot. It's like it's where, do you know where Cotton is?
Yeah.
And it's that area
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. There used to be a mill there.
Okay.
And it's actually the mill where there was an anthrax outbreak. So I learned a good bit about anthrax through this presentation. Because this was just a presentation, I guess a question had been brought up before by some folks, whether it was on the board or from the public or maybe a combination, but about, using that big space for something else, other than a parking lot.
Yeah.
Which is totally reasonable. And then that's how they got into the conversation about the anthrax outbreak and needing to like figure out if it was possible. Christina's cat is here. It's super cute. Sorry. We both just looked down and
she just walked into the room
and meowed. Anyway, so anthrax comes from a spore.
Yeah.
That develops in like goat hair and sheep hair. And so that mill, they were a textile mill. They made clothing. Specifically, they were making men's suits.
Okay.
And so in the lining for one of these suits was, for the jackets anyway, was goat hair. And there was contaminated goat hair in a shipment that they got or whatever. So there was an outbreak. 10 people were infected. A couple died, unfortunately, but that was basically it. And then they shut down, they cleaned out, and then they continued. So that building wasn't necessarily torn down because of the anthrax outbreak, which I think is like a common rumor, it seems. It was just because they went out of business and they sold the building and they tore down the building. So the decision was to look at whether or not the site could be used. They were concerned about contamination and contaminating water. Ultimately, you can put a building. There would need to be some testing and regulations and some regular testing of the groundwater to make sure it's not contaminated, because it was all essentially kind of like buried under the ground. So, but it could be used in future projects for, like a riverwalk area, a parking garage, if we wanted to just have another big parking garage downtown, or a building like apartments or something.
That view and river access though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't lose that. I mean, if we ever did anything with that space, I think it'd be super nice to have a bigger park down there.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're holding the farmers market now that's happening on Wednesdays, is down in Arms Park. I haven't been yet, but I'm sure it's lovely. I haven't, like I said, I haven't been, but it would be nice to just have a bigger space for something like that, and just like more area for people, or like some apartments. We can always use more housing. So wouldn't be good. Her cat's not gonna let up. I love it. But yeah. So
rescue from the Manchester Animal Shelter, by the way, if you're in the market.
Yeah.
A pet. Don't forget the Manchester Animal Shelter.
Yes, they have sweet puppies and kittens and all sorts of animals. Now y'all get to meet her.
Oh my goodness.
This is hilarious.
Extremely nosy. My apologies.
But yeah, so that was it for that presentation. Basically, nothing in the works now. But then the discussion went on to, you can't have my coffee, cat. Sorry, Mama's got you now. The Waterworks building. So similar discussion about, what to use that building for, because Waterworks is getting a new building. So which one is going to go into the old one, and does the old one need to be refurbished and all? A little bit of discussion. Basically, if there's a forward-facing department, like the tax office or something, where people are going to come in, there's definitely going to need to be some renovation to accommodate that. If it's a singular department, it's good to go. Basically, you don't really need to do anything. But if there's going to be multiple departments where you might need to like put up some walls or change some electrical or whatever, then it would probably need some major renovations. And it's an older building, so there was confirmation that there is asbestos in the ceiling. So that is something that they would have to remediate. Yeah. And then they talked about, there was some conversation about waiving fees for construction. Forgive me, I can't remember if it was the old Waterworks building or the new Waterworks building. So I apologize, folks. But there was some conversation about waiving fees. And the main point is that Jay, I guess, in Lands and Buildings had originally supported waiving the fees. And now he was saying, no, we might need those fees to support renovations or to support construction, which makes sense. And especially considering, like the city's revenue struggles and the state's as a whole, it doesn't really make sense to waive those fees.
To waive revenue, yeah.
Yeah. And then June had suggested that if we collect the fees to, earmark them for the reno rather than putting them into the general fund, which again, smart move.
Yeah.
Then we went on to some just like general updates and things, basic approvals for planned projects, one of which is the women's locker room and the police department.
Yeah.
You were here for this.
I did watch
You did watch
meeting with you.
Yeah. We had a little party.
It was honestly, that was my first and only question about that too, was making sure that locker room is used appropriately. So Ward 6 Alderman Chrissy wanted to clarify that if the women's locker room is renovated, it's for biological women only. I don't know. This is the police women's locker room.
Yes.
I don't know the percentage of trans women that are on the police department. I'm assuming it's none.
I'm assuming it's none too. I have never heard of this issue or seen a police officer where I went, they might be trans. Not
and
that
if
I would
it isn't,
even, maybe
if it isn't none, I don't care.
No.
But that was Chrissy's burning question, was that the renovated locker room be used for only biological women.
Yep.
So
I know.
if you voted for her and that's important to you, she is asking the hard-hitting questions, guys.
Every time.
She's got your back.
Yeah. Have never cared about that ever.
No.
I have never had an experience where I was in a bathroom with a trans woman and felt unsafe. Period. Ever. And
I can tell you, I've had major concerns sending my son alone into a men's bathroom.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
But never the other way around.
And my son is only a year old, so I don't have this problem yet. But your son is 9, 10.
He's 10 now, yeah.
Yeah. So that's because it's like, at what age do you stop bringing them into the women's room?
He doesn't want to come into the women's room
probably
anymore.
Feels awkward about it. But at the same time, you worry about men in the men's room because men are more likely.
It's not all men, but it's always a man, it seems like, these days. So, it's a concern of mine as a mother, at least.
Yeah. So. And it's tricky. I think about even Jimmy, my husband, when he's out with the girls. I mean, Roxanne is 5, and he really does not like bringing her into the men's room at this point anymore because of urinals. Okay. Yeah. To be clear, like there's often not a barrier, like you can see everything, and she's 5. Like she understands the concept of body parts and private parts.
Yeah.
And so he typically will opt, like if she needs to go to the bathroom, to try to go to the family bathroom, but the one at the mall is locked, so you have to call the security guard. So it's like a big deal. Anyway, not to go off on this too much, but just I think my point is, I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've never felt unsafe with a trans woman. No one is doing me any favors by being this insistent about biological females only in the bathrooms. I don't feel unsafe about that. I just don't. No. And I'm a burning liberal, so I have been in a bathroom with a trans woman. So I should know. Anyway, moving on. This was kind of interesting. And I think this will be a bigger to do later, not necessarily right now. It's Central High School. The Historic Commission wants to put it on the registry. And I believe that motion to do that passed. So what does this mean, right? So it means Central High School, the classical building in particular, is going to go on the registry of historic places, which makes sense. It's the oldest high school. We talked about it a lot on the school board and about just how old it was. So it's on the registry now, or it's going to be. So in terms of future planning for the schools, this could become a little problematic.
If there needs to be any renovations or updates, it might make things a little more challenging for sure.
Yeah. Well, and, I know too, one of the plans, and I mean, who knows what's going on with the long-term facility plan anymore, just with the whole nature of this political environment that we're in. But, one of the proposed areas for a new high school was to tear down Central and rebuild on that spot.
Yeah.
So that would
be able to do that now. Interesting.
Probably not. No, I mean, you couldn't tear down the building for sure. So
have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Tabled the raised TIF, which is for the roadway project that we talked about in another episode. I think that's probably just because they're waiting on the feds to get back to them about the changes to the plan. There was a longer discussion about, I don't know what it's called. It's not the clerk's office, the where you go to register your car.
Oh, the tax collector's office.
There was a lot of discussion about
staffing,
and then also closing earlier and changing the hours a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it stemmed from the length of time it takes to go there and pay a tax, whether it's your registration or some other sort of license or something. I guess what happens is when they close the doors, anybody that's already inside still gets their transaction taken care of. So it's leading to the city hall employees having to stay however long it takes to finish all those transactions, which is leading to some burnout and some frustration with the employees, which is understandable because if you are supposed to work until 5 and you're there until 6:30,
yeah, that would be frustrating.
That's frustrating for any evening plans that you may have, or maybe you have a kid from daycare you have to pick up,
or even
for a sporting event for your child. So it can be a little difficult to manage that as a schedule. So I think she was asking for some additional employees, but mentioned it takes 5 years to learn that job.
That's insane to me.
So if you hire someone, you really hope they stay at least 5 years.
Yeah,
That's quite the investment in new employees. And I know as a taxpayer, every time I have to go register my car, I'm like, oh my God, I have to go down and register my car. I have to take the whole day off from work. And
I know. It is an endeavor.
It's so long. It's so long. So I don't know what the solution is there. And I think they were talking about some flex hours. If they stayed late, could they stagger coming in the next day? But then
staffing
levels, and how do you manage the next day's workload? And so I think they were going to continue exploring a solution to that.
But they did get approved to fill those vacancies. So I believe they're going to be able to start hiring for that. But yeah, I mean, you had mentioned something when we were talking about this that I thought was interesting, because this is something that the state explored doing, and it didn't work well for the state. I think, look, okay, but the state is the state, and we're like a whole other problem. But doing like task-based work rather than having to sit and take every sort of interaction or transaction.
They just call you by number, and it's whatever you've got, they service. So my thought was, if you've got new folks in and there's a standard, 1 to 5-ish transactions that are pretty easy to learn, or the ones that they learn the fastest, or the ones that are most common maybe, or the least complicated. If you've got a new person coming in, you select what it is you're coming in for, and they just take those numbers. It's an automated system. You could easily say, I'm coming in to renew my registration. It takes, I think she said 5 minutes.
5 to 15
minutes for a registration renewal if you have all your paperwork. Yep. So if that's just process renewal registration, and you select that when you come in, and then as they, get really competent at that, you can add a few more tasks to their list and expand what numbers they can count on. And my background is I was a customer service manager for a B2B business, and it took several years to learn the role and be really good at it as well. And that was one of the approaches we took with some of our new hires, is we didn't throw the whole book at them at first. We started them with the really basic stuff they were going to be doing every single day, and that was what they did until they got really good at it. Then we slowly built on that, and it just took some of the pressure off the rest of the team that was handling the rest of the workload. So I don't know, that was what came to mind when we were talking about this the other night.
No, and I think it's a really valid point, because I would almost expect something like an office like that to already be implementing a system similar to it, because it's, there's definitely transactions that are going to take way longer because they are more complicated, because you do have to call a state department to get some sort of piece of information or something, right?
Or you just have to know different statutes or different things.
How to work the system even. I don't know what kind of computer system they have. But anyway, and those folks also, it looked like only made about $50,000 a year. So they're not really giving them a lot of reasons to stay if they're only making $50,000 a year, which isn't even really enough for an individual to live comfortably in the city.
See our later episode with Kathy.
See our later episode. Yeah, for real. See our later episode with Kathy on the minimum wage about that. But yeah. So
interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that.
I hope something changes, because Jimmy just did his registration in July, and he did wait 2 hours to get that done.
In June too.
God, it's a long time. God bless him for going too. I think he had one of the kids with him.
Nice.
God bless him. All right. To the biggest discussion of the night, the thing about MPD and ICE being deputized by ICE. This was brought up, I forget if it was
by Chrissy.
It was by Chrissy. in the beginning.
Because Rich suggested it.
Because Rich had said.
They seem to take their cues from him. Yep. She was proposing that the MPD get the 287 agreement with ICE that Troy, New Hampshire, and several other police forces in the state have signed on for.
Yeah.
And Chief Marr was there at the meeting, so he did come by and just come to the front and talk about it. Basically said that was not something he was interested in pursuing for a variety of reasons. I mean, I don't disagree with him. I don't think it's something Manchester needs to pursue.
No.
ICE is already in Manchester. They have an office here. They already work with them. They already check warrants. They already call if somebody has a warrant out.
Should she be?
And I think
okay. Just making sure.
And Alderman Barry actually chimed in with something that I don't think anyone's really mentioned yet, but he used to work with the federal.
He was a police officer.
He was a police officer, and he used to liaise with the federal agencies quite often. And his comment was that if you are in a 287 agreement, you are liable for all that risk.
Oh, what happened?
And he called out the trainings that the ICE agents get right now, which is not a lengthy training. It doesn't seem very comprehensive. And he also called out the recent really terrible acts of violence that have happened. One just recently in Maine where it was the wrong person. He wasn't even the subject of the warrant, and he was murdered in front of his child.
Yeah.
And the police force and subsequently the city would be liable for that.
Yes.
That's a pretty big mistake to make.
It's a huge deal.
And we've seen it a lot, so I don't think it's an isolated mistake. No. So, and then there was obviously staffing concerns that Chief Marr had brought up. They're short-staffed by 37 if you count the individuals still in the police academy training. And he said, I just don't have the staff to even support something like this, even if this was something we wanted to pursue. Yeah,
he said it takes 5 to 6 dedicated officers off of his regular role to be conducting these tasks by ICE. So it would also essentially require additional training and take those 5 to 6 people off due to training for quite some time as well. So it's not a really good use of resources. It's unnecessary because we do check, our police officers are checking for active warrants in other states and other municipalities and through other agencies. So if there is a warrant for someone's arrest, then yes, they contact that agency. And if that agency is ICE, then they are contacting ICE. What's happening in Troy, I would presume, and to be clear, I haven't looked into it, is Troy is conducting traffic stops, it sounds like, and they are checking the status of the people who are in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And so these are not people who necessarily have warrants. These are just people who happen to be in the car.
Well, they're looking for people that don't look American,
white,
and pulling them over. And hopefully, in their cases, they're hoping to deport them. The other thing that I think is really critical, particularly to Manchester, compared to Troy, and Alderman Bonilla brought this up.
Yeah.
Manchester is a very diverse city, and his concern, which is valid, the Manchester police has put in a ton of effort in recent years.
Yeah.
And success to be determined by the individual, but they've put in a lot of effort to improve community relations with everyone in our city so that they feel less scared to cooperate with police for crimes, for domestic violence cases, for traffic accidents, even. If you are somebody who is predisposed to be afraid of the police, you're not going to want to cooperate with them for anything at all. So his concern was the MPD entering into an agreement with ICE would undo any and all of that progress that was made and just be a real detriment to Manchester.
Yeah.
Troy is it's just smaller, so it's probably less diverse than Manchester is, and so that may not be a concern of theirs. But it did ultimately go to a vote, and it failed. I believe it failed with only 2 aldermen voting in favor.
Yeah, I mean, standard.
Chrissy and our Ward 8 Alderman Ed Sapienza said, yes, we absolutely should be partnering with ICE. Everybody else either said no or abstained, I think.
There was one abstention. Ross Terrio abstained because he didn't have all the facts. I'm like, Ross, come on, man.
Yeah.
You're a smart dude.
So it didn't pass. The MPD is going to continue as they
is.
are, which was good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to vote. If we had a different makeup on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, it might have had a different outcome. So
sure.
your vote in local elections is really important.
It's super
really
important.
matters to what happens in your community.
Absolutely.
So.
And before we go, that's basically the wrap up for the aldermanic meeting that happened. There was a school board meeting last night. I did not watch it. Christina did though, and just had a few little highlights from that to just keep in the back of your mind as we go throughout the year.
There were 3 public comments. The first one was about Celebrate, which is coming up. That's Manchester's big back to school community event.
Yeah.
I think I heard they had 87 different partners
tabling
at the event.
Fun.
It's huge.
It's so fun.
That's on August 20th.
Yeah.
4:00. The second comment was around the dual language immersion program that it's occurring in a couple of our elementary schools.
Bakersville.
This one was in particular Bakersville. The gentleman, I guess, does some work in the school as a volunteer, a partner community volunteer. And his comment was that he does not like it and he thinks it has been detrimental to the Bakersville community. He referenced a couple of staff and the principal had left, and he sort of had insinuated that it was because of this dual language immersion. Obviously, staff leaving happens, turnover happens, and those reasons are not public. Superintendent Camille was pretty fiery on her response to him about this, that he doesn't have all the facts, and that is not the case at all, and that all of the stats and has proven that this dual language is a success. I think there was almost 100 participation or continuing participation. Into the only student that was not doing that was leaving the district.
Yeah.
So it was very successful. The students all really love it and were engaged. The parents all really love it and were engaged. So that was a big topic, and it continued throughout the meeting as well. There was some presentations to be prepared about the dual language that will be coming up at future meetings. And then the third comment was from Alderman Bonilla, just kind of talking about the attendance policy and the current no grade situation.
Yeah.
If you are not in attendance, I guess there's some discussion about that affecting your GPA, your grades.
Yeah, this has been...
It was voted on by previous Board of School Committee.
I voted on this, and I voted to remove the NG because the NG was basically a no grade, and it was pretty much a wash anyway. It was just dumb. And so I said, let's get rid of it because it was holding people up in other ways. I won't dive into all the ways, but it just wasn't necessary. And unfortunately, what happened was that, some of us, myself included, kind of pushed behind the scenes to get some information in terms of what was happening now. What was the data looking like now in terms of attendance? Now that we didn't have this NG on a report card, did that negatively affect attendance? Because even though it didn't necessarily hurt them in other ways, it still was kind of an ugly thing to look at on your report card. My guess is that things are probably moving in a way where they need to do something about this now. They need to establish a stronger attendance policy. And I heard all throughout my time on the school board from staff in particular, but also from parents, and actually sometimes from students themselves. And we have school board members who are, there's always a student school board member, and so I would chat with them about this sort of stuff. I also, at the time, our babysitter was in high school at Memorial, and so I would chat with her a little bit about some of these things and see what she thought. But the consensus seemed to be that removing the NG was good, but it needed to be replaced by an actual attendance policy, something more similar, honestly, to what like you and I would be more familiar with from when we were in school, where you have an actual expectation as part of your grade that you're there at school. And if you don't, then your grade is affected. You get 10% off, which is, that's a letter grade. It's 10%. So
Jason's request was really, hey, we know this is a problem. We don't know why it's a problem. And it could be a variety of reasons depending on the student population. So his ask was, let's find out why these kids are late or missing school, and then try to come up with solutions for those reasons.
Right.
Is it transportation related? Is it, they have to watch their little baby brother related? Like, let's tackle the whys and then craft solutions to that while we're doing the policy instead of just a blanket policy. So I think that's going to be further discussion. They are going to be continuing to discuss the attendance policy. A couple other highlights from the meeting. There was a lot of things that we presented at future meetings. It's summertime. They're working through a lot of school transfer requests. So the state passed the law that you can
thing to be aware of.
Move between districts, which they're trying to manage. I guess they got a lot of kids requesting district transfers.
Internally or
internally. I think it was like 170 students asking to move schools.
Within the Manchester School District. Like if I'm a Jew, but I don't want to be a Jew, I want to go to Smith Road. Yeah. Sort of a thing.
So Manchester Memorial and Manchester Southside were the two most requested schools to move into. There's a couple of schools that are full at grade level already. So they are not accepting kids because they can only accept kids if they have the room.
The space.
They are trying to leave some space in classes for transfers because there's more to come, I guess, as the school year comes in. I guess August is a very busy time of people moving and people, re-enrolling and things like that. So that's going to be something that's going to be sort of ongoing. They're trying to accommodate what they can, but with several schools and several class sizes already maxed at those schools, they just can't accept the transfer students, which, it makes total sense. So that is something that they're continuing to work on and will continue to happen over the next, month or so.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. My concern with that has always been about those students from out of district who have special needs, who are in smaller districts that can't accommodate them. Because those are, not that we don't want them.
They're not a request. That's not a transfer. I don't think that's what they're considering in part of this transfer request because those happened already.
Yeah.
That was prior to that law. Yeah. So I don't know if they're in that number or not. But there was a call that they are still hiring for quite a few support staff to accommodate IEPs and 504s and things like that. So they're still working through that as well, which I guess is sort of a fluctuating thing. The other thing that I found really interesting, Dr. Espinola mentioned this one, is the school start times. They are not changing for this year, but I guess that is not a dead topic.
No, that's going to come back.
She is putting together a task force of community partners and community members and staff to really investigate what works best, because all the data proves and demonstrates that older children, so middle and high school, really benefit academically from a later start time. Yeah. And right now they have the earlier start times.
Yeah.
And that elementary school students, while they do have a little bit of an impact to their sleep, their academic performance is impacted almost minimally, almost not at all from having an early school start time. I mean, I think of how many kids I know that are up at 5 a.m. anyways until they turn like 9. My kid was never one of them.
I was going to say, I think my kid is an exception.
He is a sleeper, but so many of my friends with little kids are like, oh my God, my kid's been up since 5 o'clock. I can't get her to
I know. Blessing.
I think that kind of tracks with like what people know about small children.
Yeah.
So, but with the busing system, the staggered busing, what that means for after school activities, for sports, for daycares, they're really going to investigate what the impact of switching that will be. So there's going to be a task force starting on that she's putting together. Yeah. So not a dead topic.
No.
More to come there, I guess.
I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I think the proposed time for elementary school that did not go through. So again, just if you come in the middle, this is not happening. Was like 7:45 or thereabout for elementary originally. I'm not opposed to that. I start work at 8, and so honestly, that would kind of make our lives a little bit easier because we could drop our kids off at elementary school before we even have to be in the office, which would be helpful because right now it's 8:20 and that is 20 minutes into my workday. I'm already, Jimmy or I, it's always Jimmy though, in our house is dropping off. So I think that's interesting. We'll see what happens in the future with that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other last thing I just wanted to talk about, Superintendent Camille gave a lot of updates. Some of them I already covered, but they are already starting to look at their budget process. So I know that was a huge hot topic that just very recently was the budget. It's coming again next year. And the school board presented, I think, 3 budgets, the mayor and aldermen. And so they're starting work on that already to have more frequent, earlier conversations with the city, with the mayor, so that hopefully we aren't where we were this past budget season, which was really painful. And then the audit as well. They're going to have a presentation on the audit. I guess there weren't any major findings for the audit, just really
like
some
as
efficiencies,
expected.
like efficiencies.
Oh my
But
God.
that costs money to update systems to be more efficient and yada, yada, yada.
So everybody, if you're worried about the school district wasting your money, we just wasted a bunch of money doing an outside audit on a department that already does an outside audit yearly.
Yeah.
We did additional and nothing.
Oh, and we are fully staffed with bus drivers for this year. So that's exciting.
That is actually super exciting.
The bus, there was a lot of delays last year. So,
oh my God.
So starting the school year off with a fully staffed fleet of bus drivers is pretty exciting.
Kudos to Dr. Espinola. I think she's in charge of operations. Like, kudos to you, because that is a huge fucking deal. That's a lot. And that's the F-bomb that's going to make it explicit.
Yeah.
Right here at the end.
That's okay. So overall, I think it was a good meeting, and I think there's going to be a lot more
to come. This is the first meeting after
I mean, they're not back in school yet. I think once school gets started in September,
it always ramps up.
It'll be a little busier,
and they'll have another meeting, I think, this month. Unlike the BOMA, the school board ramps up again here in August. So, but before we officially sign off, thinking about celebrating, I do want to mention August 23rd. No,
what are you talking about?
The Get Faded thing.
August 30th.
August 30th.
She was off an entire week.
I'm off.
Sunday, August 30th, Get Faded. They are also doing a back to school event.
Yep.
Sponsored by the Village Play Foundation. And they're going to be doing haircuts for kids, backpacks for kids, all sorts of different things there. There's going to be some different vendors. And we are hosting a clothing swap. So if you are cleaning out your kid's closet and you have old clothes that you need to get rid of, we will take them. And also, if you are in need of some clothing for your child for back to school, come see us on August 30th. We'll have a table there. And even if you don't need clothes, come on down to the community event, say hi, check everybody out, and support it.
Get your kid a haircut for free while you're there. It'll be fun. I'm excited.
August 30th.
So please contact us if you want to make a donation or anything. Happy to schedule a pickup or drop off. info@spillthegood60.com. So
all right.
I think that's it.
We broke our 30-minute rule.
We did. Sorry, guys. 45 minutes. You'll have to forgive us. Maybe next time we'll figure it out better. But oh well. You got to see a cat. Bye.